I saw one like a son of man. His head and his hair were white like white wool, like snow, and his eyes were like a flame of fire. Revelation has here mixed up an image from the book of Daniel. The coronation scene in Daniel chapter 7, where the Son of Man receives his heavenly authority. Because there, the Ancient of Days, whose God is enthroned, and the Son of Man comes with clouds from the earth, and he approaches the Ancient of Days and receives this authority. Well, when this happens, the Ancient of Days is the one with the white hair. Well, in John's version of this scene, the Son of Man has the white hair of the one sitting on the throne, which of course, again, is another way of affirming Christ's divinity and specifically noting his pre-existence and his authority in the heavenly realm. But more difficult is trying to figure out what's going on with Jesus' feet. It says his feet were like burnished bronze when it has been made to glow in a furnace. Now this is surprising to us because the only two places where this language occurs in the Old Testament is in relationship to angels. Ezekiel chapter 1, the cherubim who are around the Merkavah, God's war chariot, it says that their feet were like a calf's hoof, and they gleamed like burnished bronze. And the text that is likely more influential for Revelation at this point is in Daniel chapter 10, where some angels appear, and it says their eyes were like flaming torches. That language is used of Jesus here. And his arms and feet like the gleam of polished bronze, and the sound of his words like the sound of a tumult. Which raises the question, why does Jesus have angels' feet? One answer is it could be a way of asserting that Jesus is the angel of the Lord. In the Old Testament, God will often show up in an embodied form, and it will call him the angel of the Lord. And Christians have often speculated that this could be Jesus in his pre-incarnate state showing up. And that may very well be the case. I don't think that's what Revelation is doing for two reasons. One is if you go and look at those angel of the Lord passages, they don't have feet like this. And two, John uses the Old Testament hundreds and hundreds of times to explain to us who Jesus is, and he never grabs any of those angel of the Lord passages. So this explanation to me just has no context. An interesting idea is that it doesn't have to do with angels' feet at all, but with the bronze altar of sacrifice, that Jesus has essentially been fused with a piece of furniture in the temple, because the bronze altar is where sacrifices were done, and there's fire upon the altar, and so that may be why his feet are like bronze and fiery and all of that. And to me, it strikes me as a little bit awkward, but there are some supporting arguments for it. We've already seen in a previous lesson that the Holy Spirit becomes infused with a piece of furniture, the 7 branches of the menorah. God is always on his throne. His throne is almost an extension of his being. And of course, the throne is a reference to the Ark of the Covenant. So it could be, I'm ultimately not satisfied by this explanation because the altar of sacrifice shows up in chapter 11 and it's not his feet. So for me, that's probably not the case. I think that the feet refer to Jesus' elevation to the divine council. The Bible is a story about how an angelic government that was supposed to lead the nations has led the nations astray. And as a consequence, they have received a notice of termination. They are going to be fired, and we are going to take their place. Right? This is according to Psalm 82. That's where you get them fired. Hebrews chapter 2 says that the angels who are ruling in the present age are not going to rule with us in the age to come. In fact, in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, we will be given authority over the angels. The angels that govern us presently are getting fired, and we will govern them later. Just as they gave us the Mosaic law, so we will give Mosaic law to angelic societies in the age to come. Well, Jesus defeats the grave and is raised up to the right hand of God to take his place in the divine council. And much of the rest of this book is concerned with the elevation of Christians to angelic status so that we can join this council, this angelic government. And so ultimately, that's probably what this means. In fact, some of this angelic language is going to show up here in just a moment. And finally, is this evidence of a dreamlike experience? I'm going to try to explain this to us like we're golden retrievers. So, skeptics say John did not have a real vision. He made this up and he's writing fiction. Believers, of course, we believe that he had a real visionary experience. I specifically think that his visionary experience was something like a waking dream in the type of rules and patterns that regulate a dream have regulated John's visions, and that we can look to clinical dream research to learn something about the type of experience that John has had. Well, if John is having, a lying moment, right? If he is in control of this narrative, if he didn't see anything, if he can premeditate every line, one thing is clear: he's not going to make things hard on himself if he's in control of the story. And this is a place where it would appear he's made things hard on himself if he is lying. Because one of the main points he's going to try to make by the end of the book is that one should never worship an angel. He's going to relate two scenes in which he falls down to worship an angel and he's rebuked for it. And he tells his audience this because he wants them to learn from it. It's a didactic moment. It's a teaching moment. No matter what, and no matter what an angel shows you, never worshiping an angel. Well, if that's his point, he's not going to go out of his way to give Jesus angelic features because he clearly wants you to worship Jesus, right? It gets muddled. It gets a bit confused here. And if this is theological fiction, he's not going to do that to himself. What appears to be the case, and as often happens in dreams, things are getting very mixed up. The Son of Man is there. He's getting features taken from the Ancient of Days off the throne and imposed on him. A couple chapters over here in Daniel, this angel has these certain features. These are getting pushed onto the Son of Man. It's very counterintuitive, not the sort of thing he would make up. But nevertheless, he's had this visionary experience, and now he's in the aftermath of it, trying to make sense of it, trying to write it down in a way that makes sense, trying to communicate something to his audience so that they can make sense of it. And now he's stuck on this tightrope between saying, don't ever worship an angel, but worship Jesus, and yet there is some sense in which he's angelic. Now, that's a very muddled and difficult situation to navigate. And when we see John in that difficult situation, you have to ask yourself, if he is lying, if he's just writing fiction, would he do this to himself? Would he potentially undermine his own message? And the answer is he would not. And so we're looking for these moments where John is in a difficult situation as a writer, because this is one line of argumentation, one line of evidence to suggest the authenticity of his visions.